Hello everyone, I'm Melissa Dudon. Thank you so much for joining us for Trending Vegas, where we talk about the hottest topics making headlines over the past few weeks. I'm joined by a portion of our social media team, including Jennifer Davies, and we have Jace Radke social distancing over there in the corner where he likes to be. All right, guys, let me ask you how things been going. A lot of changes, vaccine stuff going on, mitigation measures changing. Has the office been flooded with calls?
Yes, it's been a struggle to try to balance the need for emergency information, but still that return to normal, because people are really resonating with some of our more positive and fun content. And I think it's just a sign of a shift in things where we're kind of returning to normal.
All right, and we're going to get to that fun content in a minute. But first, we're going to hit on the pause that was placed on the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine after 6 women developed rare blood clots after receiving the vaccine. Now, the pause was to determine if the vaccine was linked in any way. Here's a look. A Nevada teen was put in a coma, placed on a respirator, and underwent 3 brain surgeries after developing blood clots about 1 week after getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. This one from Stephen King. Listen up. Your chances of dying of COVID are exponentially higher than the chances of throwing a blood clot as a result of the J&J vaccine. Get vaccinated. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for others. Then we have this from the Associated Press. Breaking, a U.S. health panel says it's time to resume use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine, despite a very rare risk of blood clots. So let's talk about this. I know here in the city, things definitely took a bump. I think it probably took a bump everywhere. It makes everyone just a little bit more nervous to go get one, maybe think twice about go getting one. I looked at social media to see what was everyone saying about it. And overwhelmingly, I saw more people say, go get it still, go get it. That's just such a small percentage of risk. What were you guys seeing on social media?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of confusion. We actually had an event scheduled the day that announcement came out. And so the city did pause that, which I think was good, just to, reiterate confidence that we were going to wait and see what the CDC recommendation was. But I think in general, when you have something and then you kind of even take it back, even if it's the right thing to do, getting ahead of that message again is going to be really tricky. And I think it's something for all of us to say, like, yeah, you should go get it, but would we go get it if we were in the situation? And I think that's going to be a call everyone's going to have to make for themselves.
And like you said, it's really hard to get ahead of that messaging. Once it's out there, the damage is done, so to speak, even though if we don't even know if there were links to it. But messaging is everything. Timing is everything. Jace, what are you seeing on social?
Yeah, it just reinforced, I think, people's stances on the vaccine as a whole. The people that were apprehensive or didn't want to get it, then you see on social where they'll be like, see, told you so, right? And we actually had to start, for our events that were coming up, our vaccination events, start saying, this is a Moderna event or this is a Pfizer event, just to let people know, because there was a stigma that was attached there for a minute. And we don't want a vaccine to go to waste. We want people to come and get them if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, and you wonder how long that stigma is going to last. And it's a really important vaccine because it is a 1-dose vaccine. So for those communities or populations that don't necessarily have the ability to come back a second time around or are less likely to come back for a second dose, the J&J vaccine was key in order to get them vaccinated. So definitely a bump in the road that I don't think anybody wanted to see. But where can people go to find out more information on coronavirus in general?
They can go to lasvegasnevada.gov/coronavirus. We're keeping that updated with all the latest information on vaccines and testing and all that.
And we have talked to some experts who say that if you want to get a COVID vaccine, right now is the time. They have so many openings. It's easy to just walk in and get an appointment. So definitely take advantage if that's something you were looking to do. All right, well, let's move on to the next topic, which is the announcement and participation of so many things getting ready to open, and just signs all around that people are ready to be out and about. First, here's a look inside of the new convention center, the new West Hall expansion of the Las Vegas Convention Center, with some big shows getting ready to open their doors, and Elon Musk's tunnel getting ready for use. There's been a lot of good social media about inside those tunnels and what it looks like, and it's a little scary to me, but some people love it. It looks like a big club. It looks pretty cool. All right, then we have Resorts World getting ready to open its doors this summer, and they made a huge announcement when they said they were partnering with big names like Carrie Underwood and Celine Dion, to name a few. And then as you head more downtown, the city has announced its new concept called Brewery Row that supports all of the breweries and tap rooms and other businesses that have really taken off in recent months. So many good signs. This is the exciting stuff you were talking about that people want to know about. Yesterday I was going through social media. Bruno Mars has announced that he's coming back. Santana put out a video saying that he's coming back. So this is really a lot of excitement. What are you seeing, Jen?
I think we've really seen a changing tide in people's feedback and feelings about these things reopening. Even just a couple months ago when plans were announced for things to reopen, there was a lot of trepidation from people. They were really nervous. They were making comments about what are the safety protocols going to be. And we're really seeing a change in that where people are not as negative as they were before. I think they're wanting to return to normal. Every single weekend we get tagged in more and more videos of showing how robust the strip is. The airport was tweeting this week about how busy it's been and to allow yourself extra time to get through the process there at the airport. So I think it's just a sign of the times, and it seems like by and large the public is behind it.
Jace, what are you seeing?
Yeah, and I mean it's people have done a good job, right? Sticking to the protocols and staying safe to stay open, and we're seeing the fruits of that now. And if there's one thing about Las Vegas, like a mega resort opening, like Resorts World, like that, if nothing else, that says we're getting back to normal right there, because that is a Las Vegas staple. And, we in our office got a bunch of calls from media out in Montreal and Quebec, Canada, because Celine Dion, national hero there. And anytime she's announced to appear in Vegas, our phones ring off the hook and, get a comment from the mayor about Celine return to Vegas. So all good, and looks like we're in the right direction.
I think it's really exciting, and to see this kind of excitement. I know that this past week I did a story on Brewery Row, the concept from the city here, and went out to a bunch of breweries, and it was packed. And when I talked to the owners of these breweries, they were saying, people are just more comfortable. They want to be out and about. They want to be safe, but they feel better vaccinated. A lot of our customers are saying, I'm vaccinated, I feel good, I can sit outdoors, I can have a beer, some good conversation. And they just said, like you said, Jen, the mentality is really, really changing. I am nervous, from just playing devil's advocate here, from the aspect of so many people coming to town, of our rates increasing and vaccinations going down. I hope that's not the case, because we are still relying on meeting certain benchmarks in terms of the vaccination levels to keep moving towards 100% capacity. Any concerns about that?
Well, I was really surprised. Someone had released numbers about how many out-of-state people are coming to Vegas to get vaccinated from California, Utah, and Arizona. I thought I read it was like 50,000 people.
Wow.
And, combined from those 3 states over the last couple months. And I think, that could be part of their trip plans. And
Right.
It's like, hey, if you want to come here and enjoy everything, get vaccinated while you're here. Sites explain whether you need Nevada verification or not. A lot of them don't require it. And I think it's good to see that they're trying to be responsible in how they're traveling.
Absolutely. I want to talk about, before we go to the next topic, I want to talk about the convention center, because that convention center is gorgeous. And World of Concrete is the big show that's coming, that I believe, is that the show where Elon Musk is going to show off his new tunnel? Do we know? Is it, Jen?
I'm not positive on which one it is.
Okay, well, he's supposed to show it off this summer, and it's just another big attraction. And CNN shows have been coming out and saying, the LVCVA is opening businesses up. They're expecting conventions, which is our bread and butter, these conventions to come in. Great news, but CNN said it great. They said, do not bet against Vegas during a downtime, because somehow we always find a way to rebuild ourselves. And it's also important to note that people are hiring. A lot of people are hiring right now. I think Allegiant Stadium is hiring thousands of people, and just, it's so nice to finally feel like we're getting back to
Las Vegas always adapts. We always adapt to whatever happens. And, I was on the Strip last weekend, and there are people on the Strip, which is really good news for the economy.
Yes, so good job to Las Vegans. Keep getting those vaccines if you want to, and let's just keep being responsible. All right, guys, let's go talk about more national topics, and that is the conviction of former police officer Derek Chauvin, who was convicted in the death of George Floyd. Here's a look. This is the family of George Floyd as the verdict was read.
Find the defendant guilty. Signed juror 4-person, juror number 19.
Then there is this, scenes from George Floyd Square yesterday, hours after the guilty verdict was read in the Derek Chauvin trial. For almost a year, I've watched our city scream, weep, and hold our breath. Last night, it felt like people took a deep breath. And then there is this powerful tweet. It says, "A first step, rest in power, Mr. Floyd." And I thought that that was really interesting. I was around the television waiting for that verdict to come in, and cities did not know what was going to happen. They were on standby with the National Guard. They didn't know if there were going to be protests, XYZ. And there wasn't, what I thought was interesting is that there was not a lot of, it wasn't a celebration like everyone was so happy. This, for me, felt more of a relief, like, okay, justice was served, and now, like many people said, this is the first step to the work that we have to do going forward. What did you see, Jen?
I think we really have to remember the role that social media has played in this entire event. With the rise of smartphones and social media, with people putting this information out there, I do think that our ability to see what happened and not having to go through law enforcement to look at body cam footage and stuff like that, I think it overall has, for better or for worse, increased the transparency of things because there's multiple viewpoints now of what's happening. And I think that social media will only continue to play an even bigger role in the future.
And there was a big tweet on that about someone saying, if this 17-year-old hadn't have filmed this event and shared it on social media, would we be getting the same sort of outcome as we are today? Because she took the video, shared the video, and it went viral. And it's a really good question because you don't know what, like you said, body cam does show stuff, but it's different scenes, different perspectives. Jace, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, social media definitely changed the landscape when everybody's got their phone, and you know, it's one thing to hear about something, it's another thing to see it visually, and it's very powerful. And you know, the other thing we saw is what we always see when there's something like this that happens. You know, people tweet about it, and sometimes they don't think about what they tweet. You know, or maybe they didn't understand how their tweet or their post would be perceived. You know, the Raiders had one, they tweeted, you know, "We can breathe" or something to that effect, and LeBron James and other people came after them for that because depending on how you perceive that, it could mean different things. So it was another example of how, you know, you can't explain what you post on social media after the fact. You have to really think about it before you post it.
Yeah, that Raiders tweet was a big one because I saw both sides of that. They said, you know, "We can breathe." Some people took it as very offensively. Others took it as, yes, we are all taking a huge sigh of relief right now. We feel like we can breathe again. So it really is. Perception is a really big player in the game of social media.
I'll just add, as a social media person, you know, when you make judgment calls and things don't necessarily fall the way that you want them to, it was nice to see that the team owner came out and said, this was me, I'm owning this, because as the social media person, you know, that could follow you around for your entire career. So I thought that was really reassuring that he took ownership for the post.
Interesting. One of the things I want to mention also before we move on, TikTok, which I'm really getting into, and these videos are hilarious, but one of the things that I'm finding on TikTok is police officers are making videos kind of with their own viewpoints on how they see Black Lives Matter and how they will react to calls or respond to calls. And I watch these videos and I go, okay, well, we are towing a line here as to what these law enforcement agencies are going to be allowing their employees to do. And I always start wondering, where is the line? Who's going to draw that line in the sand of what's okay to post and what's not okay as a public employee? So that's going to be interesting, I think, as we go forward.
Yeah, training is so important. That's always what I advocate for. Be upfront with your employees and explain what they can and cannot share. You'll notice in a lot of those TikTok videos that you can tell a lot of them are doing them from home. Like they're off duty at home, like they have their gear on, but they're not showing their badge and stuff like that. So I think maybe those organizations are giving them some guidance, but still allowing them to do that because there's a huge opportunity to educate while entertaining people.
I've noticed them doing it in their police cars.
Yeah, I've seen that one, the LeBron James one, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
In their police cars, but hiding their badge or blocking out their badge, blocking out who they work for. So it's just interesting to see how this is going to play out as we go on, because there's always a fine line, guys, always a fine line. All right, guys, we want to leave you all today with a warning. Now, it is bee swarming season right now. In fact, just recently, a local dog died after it was stung by a swarm of bees. And the city put out a tweet of tips for what you should do if you encounter a swarm. This is really interesting. You guys have actually been getting a lot of comments, questions, concerns about this topic. Give us some background and kind of what you want people to do going forward.
Well, it's bee swarming season in the spring. As the weather heats up, you'll see these like packs of bees that just move around. And when you see them all together, like hanging on a tree or maybe like over some kind of like box, it's usually in the shade and they're apparently resting while they're making their migration to wherever they're going to beat the hot weather. But I think it's really concerning. At the beginning, a couple weeks ago, just a few people were getting stung, which still makes people nervous. But now this family pet has passed away. So from a communication standpoint, it's really hard to then get out there and say, hey, people, it's okay. There's not a huge cause for concern when someone's dog died. So we have to be really sensitive to that and think about how our message is being received and giving them tips. And so we just remind everybody, you should really only call 911 if someone is in imminent danger. If you have been stung a lot of times, you should seek medical attention. I think the classification is like if you get stung 10 times, you should definitely go to the doctor because sometimes those effects can be felt longer. But the fire department can come if someone is in imminent danger, as they have a few times over the past week.
So who would we call? I'm assuming you guys would know. Who would we call if we see a swarm outside of our house on a, traffic sign or a tree? To get that removed, we should not call 911 if no one's in imminent danger.
Right.
So who should we be calling?
So if it's on your property and you have concerns, there's beekeepers and exterminators that you can talk to. There's some beekeepers that might potentially for a cost come and remove them and take them somewhere else. But normally they're not there very long. They're not building a hive. They're not, taking up residence there. They're going to move on. And so it's the recommendation of the fire department to just leave them alone. Try to not, mow your lawn or anything that day, because it's those loud noises and barking dogs that are going to really agitate them and make them fear for their life, which is going to cause them to sting.
Jace, what are you seeing?
If it's an emergency, call 911. It goes for anything, whether it's bees or any kind of incident. If it's an emergency, someone's in imminent danger, that's when you want to call 911. If it's not that, then like Jen's saying, you need to call the exterminator. Those are the people that handle this, or the kinder, gentler version of that is a beekeeper, if you can find one of those. But those are your options.
Or just leave them alone, because they're probably going to move.
Right.
And bees are an important part of the overall ecosystem. And so as long as they're not hurting anybody, hopefully they move on in just a couple hours or up to a day. So.
Right. And the hard part sometimes is when they move. If you get caught in the move. I mean, this queen bee, she is.
They said you should run because they can't fly that fast.
Yeah.
And you should cover your
face,
eyes
and face.
Right, because apparently they do like to sting. It's crazy.
Yeah,
apparently how well they can see. So
they protect their queen bee at all costs.
You can jump in a pond and use a little straw like in the cartoons.
Okay,
so,
Jace.
That's good.
Yeah, because we have ponds everywhere in Las Vegas. All right, guys, great topics, good information. Thanks so much for joining me. All right, guys, well, the COVID-19 restrictions we've been living with the past year are changing. When we come back, a deeper look at what that means for you. We'll be right back.
I know you're hungry. Starving.
Those cheeseburgers and fries smell so good.
Yeah, but it sucks that I have to drive all the way home before digging in. But it'll suck even more if you got you killed driving while distracted by a cheeseburger.
If you won't listen to anyone else, at least listen to you. Save yourself. Put down distractions, even if they're tasty. Paid for by the Nevada Departments of Public Safety and Transportation.
Totally worth the wait.
Welcome back, everyone. Life has been full of rules and capacity limits, but that is slowly changing. For a deeper look at what that means, I'm joined by the city's Chief of Public Safety Services, Tim Hacker, and Carolyn Levering with the Office of Emergency Management. Thank you both for being here. Social distancing, of course.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you.
So let's talk, Tim, let me start with you. Let's talk about what's going to change. We're taping this show the last week of April, so May 1st, things are going to be changing, and then possibly again June 1st. What kind of changes are we talking about?
Right. So the governor's office, a few weeks back indicated a desire to have local jurisdictions play a more active role in determining what's best for your jurisdiction. The 17 counties in the state of Nevada, and we're not all the same.
Right.
We're a large urban county. Our needs are way different than Esmeralda County. So, rightfully so, the governor's office wants local experts to have input. So with that, there are a number of active committees. I sit on a policy committee and represent the city on that. That's chaired by Marilyn Kirkpatrick, the county chairwoman, and she's taken on a huge role in moving things forward for our region. And so took on with her team at the Clark County Fire and Emergency Management to develop a plan that goes into effect, as you mentioned, May 1st. And then again, there's another, if we hit certain benchmarks, we can hopefully see more opening. And that's really the concept, is we want to see us continue to move to increase capacities in our businesses, and we want to invite visitors. We want to invite people back into our businesses. We want to start having shows again, start doing things in a communal nature. And this plan that was accepted by the governor last week will help us do that if we hit certain benchmarks.
So just for clarification, when the governor was coming out and saying, I'm going to turn it over to local jurisdictions, I think some people thought the county would have their own jurisdictions, the city would have their own rules. Is that not the case, or are we just doing Southern Nevada as a whole?
Yes, Southern Nevada as a whole, and I think rightfully so. The chairwoman Kirkpatrick has been very, I guess, consistent on that message, is that we all need to work together. I mean, when a person's moving around in the valley, they don't really know what jurisdiction they're in. Right. So trying to have a set of standards and conditions that are the same is very helpful, especially if there's anyone out there charged with enforcement. And our business licensing people early on had to take a role to go out and make sure that there was compliance with social distancing and mask wearing and things of that nature. And it's really daunting to think that every jurisdiction in the valley would have a different set of standards.
Absolutely. So that was very smart of y'all. So let's talk about what changes May 1st. What kind of changes are we going to see in terms of capacity limits, social distancing, mask wearing? It's
my understanding it's for businesses, restaurants. I mean, it's real. Anybody that has a fire capacity limitation is now suddenly, okay, instead of 50%, I'm going to be allowed to have 80%. So retail businesses, as well as restaurants, as well as bars and taverns, and then of course shows. You start to see, as I've noticed this last week or so, the Strip and other properties are starting to say, hey, look, we're going to have this headliner back.
Right.
And that's 80% allows them to do that, where 50% just wasn't enough revenue to really entice those types of commitments.
And so also social distancing would go to 3 feet?
It would go to 3 feet, so you think about every other seat.
Okay.
Now, the venues, like if you're going to go to a show with your wife or your kids or whatnot, they're going to allow you to congregate because you're from the same household. Mm-hmm. That's been allowed to a degree at this point in time. You think about a restaurant with a table limitation of 6 from the same family or household. That's going to expand too, up to 12 individuals at a table, again, but still mindful of those capacity limitations within the restaurant as a whole. So we hit that 60% vaccination, and that's where the community can be very, very instrumental in this, is get out, get vaccinated. We need 60% by May 1st.
Okay, so Carolyn, let's go over to you. How are we doing daily? I mean, you're someone who gets these numbers all the time. How are we looking on the vaccination end? Do you think we're going to reach that benchmark and beyond, or we still have a lot of work to do?
I think the benchmark is definitely a doable target for us. The challenge is we keep running into events that make it challenging for people to get vaccinated. Last week we had the pause on the Johnson & Johnson product, for example, which many of us had seen as a real saving grace of a product until the pause, because it's a single dose solution for parts of our community that are difficult or challenging to get folks to come back for that second dose. Because of that pause, it put into question some of the credibility, not just of that product, but of vaccinations in general. And for us in the field who are trying to get those vaccinations done, put a real chill effect on all of our operations. We had a lot of people no show over the weekend. They didn't even bother to cancel, they just didn't show up. And that hurts our ability to reach those targets. And so we're trying to get the word out and educate our community on the importance of the vaccines, that they are very, very safe. The very few rare instances that we're running into as time goes by, we're addressing as we can, and making changes to the warning labels, making sure people understand what it is that they are getting into when they get vaccinated. But that's our challenge right now, is just reminding people the importance and getting them to come out and get the shot.
How easy is it right now, Carolyn, to actually make an appointment to get a shot? I think some people might be waiting for the rush to die down. Are we at that point now where you can just call and maybe get in the same day?
Yeah, it's never been easier to almost basically walk into an appointment. We do encourage pre-registration, and you can do that online or over the phone because that helps us get data into the system that makes your visit to our clinics much quicker if you are pre-registered. But in most cases, you can still walk into just about any open clinic to get vaccinated, and they can take your registration on site.
Okay, so Tim, back to you. So May 1st is an important deadline. June 1st is also a big, what happens on June 1st, or what could happen, I guess I should say, on June 1st if we meet these benchmarks?
Right, as we continue to see the vaccinations, spread through our community and we hit those benchmarks, June 1st could be 100%. So we could move from 80% capacity to 100%. 3-foot social distancing, I think, would still be in play for some period of time. Mask is going to be in play for quite a while. The governor has indicated that there's no attempts to really roll back on the masks. There might be some consideration we're hearing from CDC whether or not they're going to continue to require masks in outdoor areas and venues. But again, the CDC, based on whatever science they're evaluating, will make that determination, and then it'll be up to the governor and his staff whether or not to apply that here in Nevada.
Listening to all the experts talk about this, you really kind of gain the understanding that it really relies on the community to do their part for us to reach these benchmarks. I got excited yesterday because I saw on social media that Bruno Mars is coming back, scheduled for July. If those benchmarks aren't met, I mean, are we looking at shows like that saying, sorry, we can't open the doors to how many people we thought? I mean, is that something that all of these jurisdictions, including the casinos, will have to look at?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that because the jurisdiction over the casinos is a gaming control board. So they have yet other requirements and benchmarks that they have to meet before they open wide open. But yes, as we start to see the venues announcing the return of Bruno Mars and Santana and other great acts that and their residency is going to be starting up and attracting hopefully visitors from around the globe to come back to Vegas. And that's the good news is our airport has for the last so many weeks been one of the busiest, if not the busiest airport in the nation as far as flights in and out. So, we're seeing that excitement. It's Vegas. People want to come back. Everything is dependent upon our community and how responsive they are. The vaccination is one of those things that's always going to be used as a benchmark for a long time. Mm-hmm. I think that's a more positive benchmark than looking at people that are being positive or testing positive for COVID or the deaths. Those are statistics I hope we can just continue to, they go away, they lessen. And let's focus on the positive. I mean, getting vaccinated is something you can do to benefit not just yourself and your loved ones, but the community as a whole.
Where can people go to find out more information about the upcoming mitigation measures as well as vaccination clinics?
The Southern Nevada Health District is a font of information, and you can go to their website. Clark County government, they have a pretty easy. It's clarkcountynv.gov, all spelled out. So you can go there. They have great access to information. And then the state itself, if you just you type in anything about the state of Nevada, believe me, you're going to see something addressing the coronavirus and readily get through those pages and get to the information you need.
All right. Well, thank you so much for information. Good luck enforcing everything, and hopefully we will all reach these benchmarks as a whole. Carolyn, thank you so much also for being here.
Thank you.
All right. That's going to do it for us. Remember, you can get in on the conversation. Just follow us at City of Las Vegas, and make sure to catch us on our Go Vegas app on Fire TV, Apple TV, and Roku. We'll see you next time, everyone. Have a great day.